Robin. Welcome to another live streaming class. If this is your first time with us, let me explain how the classes work. Today, our topic is the passive voice. If you have a question during the class, write your question in the comments section and I'll answer it at the end of the class. I also have some questions for you at the end of my lesson to check what you've learned, and you can write your answers in the comments section as well. So let's get started with the passive voice. But what is the passive voice? First, we need to talk about the active voice in order to understand what the passive voice is. So what is the active voice? This is the order of the sentence where the subject is first, followed by the verb and the object, being a direct object or an indirect object. We use the active voice when the subject of the sentence is the most important thing. For example, I ate a hamburger for dinner. Now, when the object is more important, that's when we use the passive voice. So we put the object at the beginning of the sentence, followed by the verb to be in the correct tense. We'll look at some examples of this in just a minute. And then followed by the subject, which can sometimes be omitted because in the passive voice, we don't care so much about the subject, we care more about the object. Okay, so for example, the house was built by a famous architect. So if we turn this around to the active voice, we could say a famous architect built the house. Okay, let's look at some more situations of when we use the passive voice. So when is most common for us to use the passive voice? In news reports. If you watch the news in English, you'll notice that the speaker will use the passive voice a lot, as well with scientific facts. When the focus is on the action and who caused or performed the action is not important. Now, there are some verbs that can only be used in the active voice because they do not have an object. These are verbs like occur, happen, exist, and fall. On the other hand, some verbs like born, to be born, can only be used in the passive. For example, I was born in 1986. We cannot change this to the active voice, so this can only be used in the passive. Okay, now let's look at some more specific examples of how to change from the active to the passive depending on the verb tense. We'll start with the present simple. So, the sentence is, in the active voice, Bob feeds the dog every day. To change to the passive, we take the verb to be in the present, so is or are. In this case, it's is plus the participle. So if the verb in the active is to feed, the participle is fed. So the passive voice would be, the dog is fed every day, and since Bob is the subject of the active voice, we put by Bob here in parentheses because it's not necessary in the sentence. You can include it or you can leave it out. The dog is fed every day. Now let's look at the present continuous. So to be plus ing, Bob is feeding the dog. In the passive, it changes to is being plus the participle. So the dog is being fed by Bob. Now, in the past simple, the past tense of feed is fed, so Bob fed the dog. When we change to passive, we use the verb to be in the past simple, so was or were, being plus the participle. So the dog was being fed by Bob. Okay, continuing with the past, let's look at the past continuous. So this is was or were plus ing. Bob was feeding the dog. In the passive voice, it's was or were being plus the participle. The dog was being fed by Bob. Okay, now let's look at the present perfect. So the verb to have plus the participle. Bob has fed the dog. In the passive, it's have or has been plus participle. So the dog has been fed by Bob. In the present perfect continuous, I would say we don't use this in the passive voice. In the active, it's Bob has been feeding the dog. So we have has been plus ing. In the passive, it would be have or has been being. This doesn't sound very good, so in the present perfect continuous, normally we don't use the passive voice. Okay, let's look at the past perfect. So to have in the past plus participle, Bob had fed the dog. In the passive, it's had been plus participle. The dog had been fed by Bob. Okay, now in the future. The future simple is will plus infinitive. So Bob will feed the dog. In the passive, it's will be plus the participle. The dog will be fed by Bob. And finally, in the future perfect, we use will have plus participle. In the active voice, Bob will have fed the dog. And in the passive, it's will have been plus participle. So the dog will have been fed by Bob. Okay, let's look at one more case in the passive tense where sometimes you have two objects, a direct object and an indirect object. So in this example, in the active voice, we can say, she gave me a present. So both me and a present are the objects of the sentence. So there are two ways to write this sentence in the passive voice because there are two objects. The first option is a present was given to me, and then by her is at the end of the sentence, optional. And the second is I was given a present by her. Both are correct. In this case, you can choose whichever one is more comfortable for you. Okay, so we've just looked at a lot of information, but we're going to practice. I'm going to ask you a few questions to see what you remember from what we've just learned. You can write your answers in the comment section. Question number 1. Change this sentence to the passive voice. A man stole my bike yesterday. So if this is the sentence in the active voice, how would you change it to passive? What is the subject? What is the verb? What is the object? Okay, number 2. Change this sentence to the active voice, so the other way around. The newspaper is read every day by Sarah. Okay, change this to the active voice. The newspaper is read every day by Sarah. And finally, my challenge to you is to write a sentence in both the active and the passive voice. So think of a sentence, write it in the active voice, and then change it to the passive. Okay. So as you're writing your answers in the comments, we want to offer you a gift from ABBA. At ABBA, we have a complete premium course from beginners to business level with 144 units featuring short films, video classes, and exercises for you to improve your English. If you are currently a free student and you want to purchase our premium course, you can use this 20% discount, which is valid for the next 2 days. Right now, we will post a link at the top of the page in the comments, and you can click on this link to get your discount. Okay, let's see now who's joining us today. Where are you from? What time of day is it where you are? And what questions or comments do you have about the passive voice? Okay. Okay, Milo says, I built my own house. Okay, the house was built by me. You could say by myself. Okay, good. All right. Milo gave another example. I write an email to my friend. An email was written to my friend. Okay, and then by me can go is optional. Good job. Okay. Ifat, Mohammed, Anna, thanks for joining. Joseph, Jairo. All right. Emilius. Okay, good. All right, keep writing your answers in the comments, and let me quickly tell you about our next class. You can now check our schedule for the month of April. At the top of our Facebook page, you'll find pinned the schedule for the month of April, the time, the date, and the subject. So our next subject is hobbies. How do we talk about our hobbies, what we like to do in our free time? So if you're interested in that subject, please join us next week and check the time and date on our Facebook page. And remember that you can turn on your Facebook notifications to receive a message anytime we're live streaming. So if you haven't done that already, you can in your Facebook settings. Okay, let's see who else has joined us. Okay. Yes, remember that this class, after we finish the live class, they will stay in the video section of Facebook, so you can watch them again from the beginning. If you joined late, you can take notes, you can pause, and you can keep writing answers in the comments. So all of our previous classes are in the video section. If this is your first time, you have lots of materials that you can watch and catch up. We also have at ABBA a blog with articles about culture and grammar. We have a Twitter page, we have a SoundCloud page with podcasts, and we have a YouTube channel. So check out all of those resources if you haven't already. Okay, Mahfouz, thank you for your comment. All right. Let's see who else has written an example. All right, good. Okay, Alok and Kosan, thanks for joining. Nina, Elishai. Good. Okay, I will wait a few minutes after the class is over, and then I will post the answers to the questions, questions number 1 and 2, on the Facebook page so that you can check your answers, as well as the question that I asked at the beginning of the class. So I'll do that in just a little bit. Stay tuned. Okay. Great. So keep writing in the comments. We'll finish for today, but I hope that you can join us next week when we talk about hobbies. I hope this class has been useful for you. Tag someone you think might want to watch it or share it on your Facebook page. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time. Thanks again for joining. Take care. Bye.